Imagine waking up one day, and the US finds itself locked in a global trade war, with allies accusing America of coercion and retaliating with tariffs totaling €72 billion. Sounds impossible. But that's exactly what's unfolding now. What began as routine back-and-forth negotiations between the US and the EU over a modest 10% tariff ceiling suddenly spiraled. President Trump escalated the cap to 15%, then 30%, and for Europe, it felt like the finish line was just pulled back indefinitely. Tension turned into confrontation, and a deal turned into a showdown. You might be asking, how bad can it get? Why should you care? Because this isn't just politics, it's your daily life. Higher grocery bills, pricier cars, slower economic growth, and a weakening grip on global influence. Today, we are unpacking the collision between the US, the EU, and Canada, a perfect storm that could reshape the world economy. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why your smartphone, your car, and even your morning coffee could be affected. Let's start with Europe. What was initially a potential 10% tariff cap deal to de-escalate tensions now lies in ruins. Trump's tariff demands kept skyrocketing, 15%, 30%, 35%, and what sounded like negotiations soon felt like pressure. In response, Brussels is assembling a massive counterstrike, up to €72 billion in retaliatory tariffs. And these will hit hard, targeting luxury American goods, beef, soybeans, aircraft parts, cars, not to mention cloud computing services. Industries that run deep in key regions like rural Midwest farms and the industrial heartland. But the EU isn't just playing defense. They are invoking a brand new legal weapon, the anti-coercion instrument. This means American firms could be banned from EU public contracts, cross-border investments will face reviews, and shared certifications could be suspended. In other words, this war is not just economic, it's systemic and legal. The goal isn't just to push back, it's to deter future attempts at strong-arming. While Europe mobilizes, Canada is stepping in with equal force. In Muskoka, Prime Minister Mark Carney convened a rare emergency summit with all provincial premiers. This wasn't a symbolic gesture, it showed how serious the threat feels in Ottawa. Canada is executing a two-track strategy. First, salvage a sector-specific deal by August 1st. Second, prepare the infrastructure for retaliation if Trump follows through with his 35% tariff threats on goods outside USMCA protection. Already in place is Canada's 25% tariff on American automobiles, a heavy blow aimed directly at Detroit. Internal trade barriers between provinces are falling as Canada shifts its economic focus toward Europe and Asia. The result? American-bound exports from Canada dropped from 78% to 68% in 1 year. This isn't just a corporate-level issue, it's deeply personal. In 2024, America exported over $360 billion to the EU and $390 billion to Canada, two of the nation's most important trading partners. From critical minerals needed for AI data centers and defense systems to pharmaceuticals and auto parts, these aren't one-sided dependencies. Disrupting them risks destabilizing long-established supply chains and eroding decades of trust. Already, the signs of strain are showing. Bloomberg reports that U.S. import container volumes have plunged for 2 consecutive months, one of the steepest year-over-year declines ever recorded. And Yale's Budget Lab warns that U.S. tariff rates are now higher than any time since 1910. This isn't theoretical, it's real, and it's getting worse. Sure, Trump is driving the narrative. He changed the rules, set the tempo, and is now the decider in this tariff marathon. But such control means little if consequences undermine everything. If Europe and Canada mount a unified response, the effects will land hard in U.S. ports, on American farms, across factories, and inside storefronts. Consumers will pay more. Small businesses will struggle. And strategic alliances will stall. Trump may believe he holds the upper hand, but if allies strike back together, he might just be laying the groundwork for a reckoning. We are not just talking about trade disputes anymore, this is arguably the most significant economic crisis of our lifetimes. Let's delve deeper. What began as negotiation over cars and steel has escalated dramatically. European leaders, once hopeful, now view Trump's changing demands as coercion. The EU's €72 billion retaliation plan will hit a cross-section of American economic sectors, luxury goods, agriculture, automotive, aerospace, and cloud infrastructure. This is serious money. And the EU's anti-coercion measures go deeper. Beyond tariffs, they could block US companies from public contracts, review investments, and revoke technical certifications. Imagine Amazon or Microsoft losing their footing in Europe, not over quality, but over geopolitics. Meanwhile, Canada, the US's largest trading partner, isn't waiting. They introduced a 25% auto tariff, eliminated provincial barriers, and reduced US-bound exports by 10% in just a year. Ottawa is also betting on energy leverage, especially uranium, oil, gas, and critical minerals. Let me explain why uranium matters. The US domestic uranium supply is nearly non-existent, producing only 1.5% of annual needs. Over 95% of US uranium is imported, and much of enrichment infrastructure is still tied to Russia and China. Canada's Cigar Lake mine in Saskatchewan produces 11% of the world's uranium. And that nuclear fuel is vital for powering AI data centers, defense networks, and electricity grids. If Canada plays the uranium card, limiting exports or applying pressure, it could cripple US nuclear infrastructure. But uranium is just one lever. Canada also ships billions in nickel, essential for EV batteries, defense tech, and AI chips. Ontario's massive nickel reserves make Canada a strategic supplier. And Canada isn't waiting to be pushed. In July 2025, it exported its first LNG shipment to South Korea, and projects like Cedar LNG are creating new blocks of trade, bypassing the US entirely. France's EDF is locking in Canadian uranium for Europe, reducing Russian energy dependency. Canada's diversification is no accident, it's tactical. So what does this mean for the everyday American? First, expect higher prices. We are already seeing import container volumes plummet as trade shifts away. That means fewer goods on US shelves. Basic materials like copper, used in EVs and homes, are subject to roaring 50% tariffs. Yet domestic refining isn't equipped to replace what comes from Canada, Peru, and Chile. Translation: prices rise with no domestic gain. The coffee crisis is next. Brazil is facing massive duties. Americans don't grow coffee here, so that's money leaving consumers' pockets. Same with pharmaceuticals and rare earths for electronics. Price hikes transmitted directly to households. Meanwhile, household debt is edging up, with consumers already stretched thin by inflation, interest rate increases, and rising housing costs. Financial institutions are tracking spending patterns. IPOs and M&A deals are slowing. America's economic future may be stunting, under self-inflicted wounds. Irony alert: Trump's pushing the Federal Reserve to lower rates, now that he's triggered inflation and market jitters. Monetary policy as insurance against a tariff war. That's political circular logic. This isn't just another trade skirmish. It's a test of trust in the US as a global partner. Canada, the EU, and even Mexico are quietly reshaping their economic futures, with less reliance on Washington. They are building alternative trade corridors: Asia, Europe, South Asia. They are signing new energy deals, new alliances, and new trade pacts. American industries, steel, autos, tech, were built on trust and integration. Once that's gone, it's very hard to rebuild. Because countries don't just trade with you, they invest in you, align with you, and include you in treaties and strategic partnerships. Break that, and you risk being sidelined. Over the coming weeks, we'll be monitoring Canada's final LNG and uranium deals, European implementations of non-tariff penalties, US inventory levels and shipping costs, consumer price trends, especially energy, coffee, copper. Fed and Treasury moves on interest rates and subsidies. Will Canada flip to a bargaining chip, or go all in on retaliation? Will the EU bring legal anti-coercion, stick down on US tech giants? Will Congress step in to save American farmers? This isn't just economics, it's geopolitics. Do you believe Trump's tariffs show strength or weakness? Should Canada and the EU use energy leverage, and will that backfire? Is it time for America to pivot away from protectionism and rebuild trust with allies? Let me know in the comments below, because this story is far from over. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into geopolitics, global trade, and economic forecasting. Don't forget to ring the bell, you won't want to miss the next update as this story unfolds. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay ready.